I've seen that, and it's probably we want to look there again.
Hey, this is Mike Cosper. This is with the Sojourn Music Podcast, and this is the 5-question series. We're getting together with a number of worship pastors from around the country and asking them basically the same 5 questions. Today, we are with my friend Marc Heinrich. So the first question for Marc is, Marc, who are you? Where are you from? What do you do?
Marc Heinrich. I'm the Director of Worship and Music at Bethlehem Baptist Church at our South Campus. My wife's name is Becky. I have 2 kids, Connor who's 9, Holly who's 15. I'm from Illinois originally, moved around a lot when I was a kid, and in the mid-80s moved to Minnesota, and I've been there ever since, with a couple of exceptions where we moved away shortly. I've been at Bethlehem Baptist since '96. As a layperson, participated in worship there. Left there in 2003 to lead worship at Redeemer Bible Church in Minnetonka, and then had a calling and giftedness confirmed in that area, and went back to Bethlehem for a 3-year apprenticeship, and now I'm on staff at Bethlehem. So. And
there's a pastor who's written a few books at Bethlehem, right? What's that guy's name?
Yeah, John Piper.
Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Well, just describe a service for us. Give us a sense of what happens if we came to Bethlehem. What would we experience?
Yeah, we have at 3 different campuses. The worship is planned by each worship leader at each campus. The preaching point we have in common, so Pastor John will either be live or we'll have a recorded video from our downtown Saturday night service playing during the preaching time of our worship service. The morning, let's say you come on a Sunday morning to the South Campus where I lead worship. Usually we have a gathering song, and that brings our people together, at least the ones that are there. We have the traditional Christians who like to show up late for church syndrome at Bethlehem, like everywhere, I think. But the gathering song pulls us together and focuses us on the Lord, and frequently we're imploring the Lord to open our eyes to see Him and to behold Him corporately. We have a time of welcome. Usually our campus pastors do that, and sometimes there's brief announcements that they might share that are necessary for the congregation. And then we have a call to worship, and basically most folks are there by that time, and we usually have a text that does that, not always, but we call people's attention and focus to the Lord and to worship corporately, and then we go into songs, and we don't have a form maybe as set as you guys do at Sojourn liturgically, but we certainly have all those elements that you guys have in your service at some point, maybe over a course of weeks, not in one service necessarily, but ultimately at a Bethlehem service, what you're going to get are us going hard after God, so big God songs about His attributes, His holiness, His sovereignty, but also songs that drive us to the cross and to Christ and our need for a Savior. So you won't ever, if you go to a Bethlehem service, you won't ever go to one that doesn't have songs about the cross and our Savior in it. So the flavor, stylistically, could be almost anything. We could have an orchestra one Sunday, a gospel choir. We could have a band that rocks it more, or your sort of more contemporary praise vibe. Bluegrass Sunday, you know. The styles vary, but the content doesn't. And we want our people to know when they come on Sunday morning, they're going to go hard after God. It's going to be Christ-saturated, cross-saturated, God-exalting worship, regardless of the style. So.
Great. Tell me about one of the things we often hear worship leaders asking is how do we pick songs? How do you find new songs? And what's the criteria by which a song becomes a part of the hymnal of Bethlehem, so to speak?
Yeah, there's a number of different things. I mean, first off, you hear something, and no matter how good the theology of it is, it's completely unsingable congregationally. That just doesn't become part of the canon, so to speak, of what songs that we sing. But that doesn't mean we may not use it for a special music or something like that. Occasionally we do that. But the criteria is theological primarily, first of all. Is this song biblical? Is it right? If it's not right theology, that almost always we hit the eject button on that puppy and it's gone. I'm not a big believer in rewriting people's songs to make them theologically appropriate, so I feel like somebody's saying something, even if it's wrong, it's their right to say that. I just don't need to repeat what they're saying. So we try to find songs that that match with our belief. And then the other thing would be maybe the tone and the content of how they say what they're saying. If it's an overly self-absorbed kind of song, even if it is theologically correct, it probably won't get a lot of use either, because that kind of flies in the face of our going hard after God. We're not going hard after ourselves. We're going hard after God, and at the cross, and along the way we're transformed as that happens. So we probably have less of those kind of songs, like Jesus, I commit my heart to you, I will follow you all my days, those kind of things. Not as much of that, and more songs to and about God. So those are some of the criteria. And we go a lot of places for music, including Sojourn, and people send us stuff. We get the discs. So.
Oh yeah, that happens. How do you respond to complaints and critics?
Well, inside or externally?
Yeah.
I have to confess that a lot of times my heart is not loving toward, depending on how the criticisms are brought. But at Bethlehem, we're a unique situation. Our pastor has preached so strongly and so well about worship and what worship is and what it isn't, that you can't have been around Bethlehem too long and still live with that. If you don't buy into it, you've probably gone and found another church. That being said, though, there are people who will occasionally come up and have issues with either a style thing or the words or something like that. And in that case, you simply listen to the criticism, receive it, thank them for it. And frequently it's an opportunity for shepherding, because people don't get why you're doing a particular thing. Like we may sing a song in a different language, and they're like, well, why are you singing in this language? And so it gives us an opportunity to talk about God's heart for the nations and the heart for the community right here, where we have that particular ethnic group living right here in our community, or whatever. It gives opportunities for us to share and with folks, and hopefully get their expand their horizons a little bit, to defer their preferences a little bit in favor of Christ's purpose for His church. So
great. And then the last question for this first of the 5 questions: what do you think about Guitar Hero? Really?
Well, if I had it, I'd play it. But my son, I was an old Xbox player when they first came out. Halo 2 and Dead or Alive 3 were a couple of the games that I wasted a significant part of my life on. And so being at Piper's Church is this whole "don't waste your life" vibe. And so, if I do that stuff, it would be guiltily. But I think it's great. I was actually talking to somebody here at the conference that said that Guitar Hero saved their worship band because it actually taught them how to play in rhythm, because their drummer and bass player had no sense of rhythm, and actually having to figure out how to play and beat with even though it wasn't, you're not chording the same way or whatever, but rhythmically, so hey, I'm all for it. We talk about redeeming technology for kingdom purposes, so go for it.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Mark.
Yep, you're welcome.